đường chưa đi này con đã chọn, quyết định của Ngài con tha thiết cậy trông.
In loving memory of our beloved and Holy Father Joseph Tran, O.P., murdered in the Mission Church in Vietnam Central Highland. A young Dominican priest was hacked in a confessional at his church. A Vietnamese Dominican priest, Father Joseph Tran, was killed while celebrating the Sacrament of Reconciliation in the Diocese of Con Tum. He was 41 years old. The sad incident occurred while Father Tran was in confessional after the Holy Mass on Saturday, January 29, particularly in preparation for the Lunar New Year celebrations. Father Joseph Tran was stabbed in front of worshippers as he administered the Sacrament of Reconciliation on the eve of the Lunar New Year. Priestly ordination of Father Joseph Tran. At the Dominican Three Bells Church at 8:30 a.m. Saturday, August 4, 2018, Bishop Paul Hop T. Nguyen, O.P., ordains 10 Dominican brothers to the priesthood. Father Joseph Tran, the newly ordained priest, presides at the First Mass at the Peace Lady Church at a HCM downtown parish. Father Joseph Tran dedicated himself to serving ethnic groups in Con Tum Diocese. Father Tran was the newly installed priest in charge for Sa Long subparish in Con Tum province, and was known for his devotion to serving ethnic groups in Vietnam's Central Highlands. According to a report by UCAnews.com. The new altar. This is the first time Father Joseph Tran using the new altar to celebrate the Holy Mass at the mission. The wooden altar was damaged. The new altar is made of stone. The legacy of Father Joseph Tran. During the 4 years as a priest, Father Joseph Tran has completed the translating of Liturgy of the Mass, 2,800 pages in A4, into Say Dang language to offer the parishioners high, spirited worship which is easier to understand. Understanding the importance of preserving minority languages, Father Joseph Tran started a significant work. The Say Dang, Vietnamese, English dictionary based on Sedong English Vietnamese French Dictionary, 2012 by Kenneth D. Smith made for the Sedong Doc To people. Father Thomas Tam T. Nguyen, O.P., the prior provincial of the Dominican Order in Vietnam, wrote on thank you letter, "We have just lost a very nice and holy brother." Dominican Father Paul Thang Sao said his confrere was extremely gentle and had good relationships with all people. Father Joseph Tran offered his youth to God and other people, dedicated himself to serving ethnic groups in Con Tum Diocese, where there is a relative lack of priests working in ethnic villages. He served this parish and loyally shepherded the flock of God in his care. The last pictures of Father Joseph Tran. Charitable donations received for the coming Lunar New Year for the community. The tragedy happened just ahead of the 3-day Tet Festival, marking the start of the Year of the Tiger. The Washington Examiner reported, Vietnamese priest dies after being stabbed multiple times during confession by Elizabeth Faddis, breaking news reporter on January 31, 2022. A 41-year-old Vietnamese priest died Saturday evening after being stabbed multiple times while hearing confessions, according to the Vatican. The Reverend Joseph Tran of the Dominican Order succumbed to his injuries around 11:30 p.m. After being stabbed several times during confession and while celebrating the Sacrament of Reconciliation, the Vatican's Fides news agency reported. On January 29, 2022, Father Joseph was barbarously murdered with several stab wounds to the head while celebrating the Sacrament of Reconciliation in the Dominican of Doc Mo, Con Tum Mission. At that moment, a choir director Friar Gao V. Phan, a Dominican friar, called a committee member to take Father Tran to the hospital in Ngoc Hoi Township about 12 kilometers away. Then followed the vehicle which transport the priest to the provincial hospital in Con Tum. He painfully witnessed Father Tran passing away at 11:30 that night. The Dominican monastery in Kon Tum held a funeral for Father Joseph on January 30. On January 31, body of Father Tran has been transferred to Saint Martin de Porres Monastery in Bien Hoa. His funeral was held on Monday 31 January 2022 at Saint Martin Chapel, Bien Hoa City, Dong Nai, in Vietnam. His body was laid to rest among other friars in the cemetery of the province, Bien Hoa. The meeting between the lawyers, the Dominican provincial and the family of Father Joseph Tran, O.P. on the morning of February 7, 2022, at the Provincial House of the Dominican Province of Vietnam, Father Provincial Thomas Aquino Tam Thi Nguyen, O.P. welcomed and comforted the family of Father Joseph Tran, O.P., who was stabbed to death, and discussed with the group of lawyers who offers the legal support for the victim's family. The lawyers, that are working with Father Tran's family, took 3 days from Saigon to Kon Tum. They have interviewed witnesses and collected evidence of the case. The media was misinformed about this case. The lawyers will supply all information correctly and accurately until the case is closed. This horrendous murder has shocked the local church as well as the worldwide Catholic community. In a Facebook post, one of Father Tran's Dominican brothers, Hoang Vinh, described the murder as the most grievous death of a priest after the war. Atalaya. The faithful are still shaken by the violent death of the young priest who was killed while performing the sacrament of confession and are eager to see some light shed on the murky details surrounding it. According to Asia News, the conscience of the faithful is asking and demanding that voices be raised, that the truth be told so that people understand the seriousness of the matter and that justice be done in this case. Viet Catholic News reported. According to Asia News, the grave of Father Joseph Tran has become a place of pilgrimage, by Christians and others, coming to pay their respect to his memory. The slain clergyman's body now lies near the statue of the Virgin Mary, on a hill, with a non-stop flow of people, Catholics and non-Catholics, who light incense and pray at his grave. I was moved and anxious to pray at the grave of Father Tran, said Joseph Phan, a Catholic from Ho Chi Minh City, speaking to Asia News. Many people are queuing, in silence, he explained. Everyone seems to feel the love and courage of the missionary from the Central Highlands. People of other or no faith have also come to pray and lay flowers. One bunch carried a note that said, "God is love. I am an atheist, but I'm here to pay homage to Father Joseph." Abroad, hundreds of Buddhist monks also prayed for his soul, in accordance with Buddhist practice, in front of the altar. A picture of the prayer posted online went immediately viral, touching many Christians and non-Christians. In Facebook of O.P. Laity East January 30 post, our order has a new martyr Father Joseph Tran, O.P., of the province of Vietnam, who was killed last evening while hearing confessions in the missions. According to Angelicum, the Dominican order in Vietnam has a new mission martyr, a term used by the Church for missionaries who die while serving in missions and later named on an official list, though not canonized, since the details are not known. On January 29, 2022, Father Joseph was barbarously murdered with several stab wounds to the head while listening to confessions in the Dominicans' Doc Mo, Contum mission. Father Joseph was 40 years of age and had been ordained to the priesthood in 2018. May the Lord welcome him into the peace of his kingdom. Asia News reported. Father Joseph, martyr of mercy, killed during confession in Kon Tum Diocese. Father Joseph Tran, a Dominican, was stabbed in front of worshippers as he administered the sacrament of reconciliation on the eve of the Lunar New Year. The Italian Catholic news aggregator, Friday 4 March 2022, listed Father Joseph Tran as the first priests killed in the world since the beginning of 2022. First, Father Joseph Tran, January 28, 2022. Dominican priest. Killed while confessing in the Doc Mo Church, municipality of Contum. 2nd. Brother Richard Masivi Kasarika, February 2, 2022. Killed by gunmen in Vusesa, between Karumba and Mayabwe. In the Lubero territory, North Kivu, on his way back in his parish of San Michele Arcangelo. 3rd. José Enrique Vázquez, municipality of Victoria, Honduras, 44 years old. He was the parish priest of San José de Medina, Diocese of San Pedro Sula. The priest had disappeared on Wednesday morning and his body, hit by numerous bullets, was found yesterday, Thursday 3 March. The Union of Catholic Agent News reported, Father Joseph Tran dedicated himself to serving ethnic groups in Contum Diocese. His death is a great loss to the local church and Dominicans, the source said, adding that the deceased priest offered his youth to God and other people, and he meekly obeyed God's will. Dominican Father Paul Sao Thang said his confrere was extremely gentle and had good relationships with all people. Father Thang said the Dominican priest, who took vows in 2010 and was ordained a priest 8 years later, dedicated himself to serving ethnic ups in Contum Diocese, where there is a relative lack of priests working in ethnic villages. Good and gracious God, it is with heartful sadness, we ask you to bless the family of Father Young, Dominican priest, Father Ngoc Ton, who was devoted to serving ethnic groups in Vietnam's Central Highlands, has been killed in a knife attack. An informed source from Contum Diocese said Dominican Father Joseph Tran, who provided pastoral care for Sa Long sub-parish in Con Tum province, was stabbed many times while he was hearing confessions in the church on January 29. The violence of this act, we bring to you, dear Lord, to beg all that suffer from this tragedy may be healed. Help us to heal from the wounds of violence inflicted on a priest of God. The source said Father Ton died hours after being hospitalized. He was 41 years old.